Hey, all right. We are live. So, welcome everybody. We are the Heroes World podcast. A very special episode tonight. We have got Howard Wong and Josh Stafford here. Their new book coming out. Sorry, I always mix it up. It's Damned Cursed Children.
Well, got in one. Got in
Yeah,
one.
I'm subbing in for Stu here, so I'm going to try my best to live up to it. Rob's going to definitely be helping me out a lot.
Not at all.
Yeah,
you're on your own.
You son of a bitch. So we got the fellas here. We're going to talk about their great new book coming out, and then we're also going to talk about cult classic The Crow. Anything you want to get rolling with, Rob?
No, listen, I just want to say, guys, we are so happy you are here. I know that the listeners are going to be happy. As John said, Damned Cursed Children is dropping on January 27th, I think, right from Source Point Press. I got to say, I'm going to dive right in on this because I read the synopsis from the publisher. It's a horror-themed comic book that takes young kids and makes them the threat, which I think is absolutely brilliant. It's got this energy. Howard, you sent over some sample pages and whatnot, and it's like you don't see an energy like this that you usually see in horror-based comics. So I just want to say right off the bat, you guys both, I'm super excited to be able to get my hands on copies of this. I also love how the idea came to be. Now, creativity, we can find it anywhere. And so my understanding is that, Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, you got two young kids. They're in daycare. And as anybody who has kids know, they are petri dishes of disease and germs. They come home and next thing you know, you're like wiping their noses. You're doing the parental thing. And then all of a sudden you have a horrible flu or cold. So you're feeling like crap. Josh gives you a call just out of the blue. You guys are chatting. You explain that you're sick. And then Josh just kind of says, there's damned cursed children. And that was kind of the seed that started this whole entire book. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's like one of the best retellings we ever heard. We're done, Josh. We can go.
We'll see you guys later.
Buy the book. Buy issue 2.
Oh, man. But that's really what happened because I was like sick. My wife and I were sick, going back and forth, getting sick for like a good month or two straight. It was insane. My kids were becoming immune to this, like whatever the heck was going around in the daycare. But I found out the other parents were getting sick too. So it wasn't just us.
Yeah. And it's not a regular germ. It's like a super germ. It's like
it's
not just a regular
germ.
cold.
It's
like a really horrible cold.
It was bad. It was like the super flu. I mean, anyone who's been to a convention, you get the con flu. This times 1,000. It was bad. I was bedridden bad. Like I couldn't get out of bed. So we learned things about healthcare that we didn't know, like that the Nazi pot where it sounds gross when I say it now, but it helped so much back then. Basically, salt water into the nose, and you blow it out the other nose. So it flushes it out. I know it sounds gross, but I could breathe, and the sinuses don't hurt after that, which is like a godsend back then. So in between all of that, me flushing my nose and taking antibiotics, Josh calls me up. He's like, how's it going? And then literally I told him, I'm sick again. I'm dying. I know you're talking, I think you were asking me about Fan Expo at that time. He's like, so I'm coming to Fan Expo, do you need someone to help you at the table? I'm like, sure. I penciled you in, you're in, it's fine. And he asked me what was going on. And then I told him I was sick because of my kids again. That's when he said that. And after that, he said that, for whatever reason, my sick, tired brain thought that was a brilliant title for a book with, little kids as, the evil doers,
yeah,
making the world, like a shitty place. And, Josh's like, yes, you should write that. I'm like, why don't we both write that? Because I don't think I'm in any condition to write shit right now. And Josh's like, okay. And then we just started hashing it out from that point. And like, it started as a joke, I think, at the beginning. I know it was kind of a joke, but then as we worked on it, it became very real. And it became like, for me at least, I found out I was like, okay, this actually has some legs to it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to like look into this and dive deep into like the things that I grew up horror-wise. I mean, I have a lot of different loves, multi-layered geek, I guess, when I call it that. But, from the Asian horror films that would never, ever be shown on TV ever. Oh, but, the stuff like from Thailand, stuff from Hong Kong, they're crazy, man. The thing from Thailand, man, if you want a good horror night, just find some crazy ass rated ones and watch them, and you won't sleep.
Yeah. Well, the awesome thing that you guys tapped in is kids, right? Like, I'll be honest with you. So my son, he sleepwalks, and he's 12 in a few weeks. But one night, I lay in bed, and my son was walking down the stairs slowly, went back up, and I said to my wife, she was like, "Is he okay?" And I'm like, you understand the threat exists that he could just come in here one day, just like lean over us and just like start pummeling us. Right? You understand that exists, right? And I was tongue in cheek, but the reality is, if you start thinking about some of these like horror movies that you see when you have kids involved, it's terrifying. Like, children in and of itself are terrifying. So Josh, what inspired you to look at the kids and say, we want to make them the antagonists, like we want to put the evil into the kids as opposed to the adults?
I think there's something really, like you said, yeah, kids are scary. And also there's a twist on it of, in a horror movie, whether you're fighting, grown-up zombies or a monster, there's something on par, but there's something really weird and twisted about a whole bunch of kids coming at you. And I really love George Romero's stuff and that kind of unexplained horror. And without giving away any spoilers or anything, this is definitely in that camp of a group of people come together against big odds. And it's kind of like horror, like not super original in that sense, but what you bring to it is some great characters and some fun stuff, like some fun action and some fun chase and some really creepy monsters. And it's just something new. And it's like, Scary Kids is nothing new. You can go back to like Children of the Corn and Village of the Damned and stuff like that. But what horror genre works really well as is just another little twist. And so, like, post Night of the Living Dead, there's been all kinds of great horror movies, whether they be Shaun of the Dead or 28 Days Later, all kinds of different subgenres. So there's something scary about kids. And I know my mom, her movie that scarred her for life when she was a kid it's that old story. And I got to double check with her so I get this right. But it's that old story of back before ratings boards, back when kids just got dumped at a double bill. My mom would have been born in 56. So say sometime in the mid early 60s, she went to see the old black and white Village of the Damned, which is not like a Texas Chainsaw type gore fest, but she got totally creeped out by that. So to this day, that scares her, and everybody has that story. Like, they saw, King Kong, so they're scared of that, or they saw a Dracula movie and they're scared of that. But yeah, there's just something about kids. And when we threw this idea together, and then once seeing Robin's artwork, it's just like this took forever. Like, this took a long time. And I never kind of gave up on it, and I never got really like glass half empty about it. I just had this faith that sooner or later this was going to come together. And now that it's there, like, I'm just a comic geek. I never thought this is a real dream come true. And every once in a while, Howard apologizes for it taking so long. And I'm like, oh my God, man, I've got a book in Previews Comics right now. And that's awesome. And I'm really confident in it. And I love the characters and I'm proud of it. So we can do a bunch of interviews and I don't get tired of kind of plugging it along, but it's, kids are scary. I think that's what it comes down. Like, the simple pitch is this is a scary kids comic, but it's got a lot more to it. Like, once you get through it, it's got some brains in there too. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, sorry. You mentioned about Robin's. His artwork on this looks fantastic. And now I was thinking, so like, Howard, you're in the GTA. I think, is it Toronto or York region? I know Josh is in region. You're in York region, and then Josh is in Ottawa, and then Robin's out in Singapore. So you guys were like essentially the proto-COVID Zoom testers in terms of making all of this work, right? So how much of a delay did that cause, or did that, in terms of communicating with each other virtually, essentially?
Well, and Howard was farther away for some of this too, right, Howard?
I was in Hong Kong for a bit.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So when Josh asked a question, it was like a 12-hour delay every time he would ask. And then Robin is is not very active on social media. Even now, he's not very active on it. I think he has an Instagram account. Yeah, he has an Instagram account, but he doesn't have anything else beyond that I know of, at least. So I would have to like WhatsApp him or email him and go, hey, Josh has a question. It's a good one, and this is what I'm adding to it. And then whenever he answers it, then we get an answer back. But that usually creates more questions. So the beginning process of this was very hair pulling and like, oh my god, for one small thing, we're taking like a week, which is insane, right? If we were in the same room, it would take like 5 minutes, done. So what I realized was that we needed to work as much as we can without asking if Robin was okay and or be able to draw something. Do a whole couple scenes and then throw it at him and ask him the big questions like, can you draw this? Are you comfortable drawing this? If you want to change it, let us know what you want to change. But do all the notes for this entire scene first. Send it back before you draw anything. So we know that we can change things in the script, dialogue wise, what have you, to fit your art. So that became a way to work around it. So that the time delay allowed us to basically, instead of like doing this live like this, which is great, it would have been great back then. We did basically a bulk send of changes or request or commentary on something. So that helped us a lot. It was only like I think Josh and I did live chats and stuff when I was overseas. I mean, I traveled a lot during that time too. Actually, kind of think of it. So I was like sometimes in different wickedly different time zones within the same week or so. But it was never. Once we figured out how to work that way, it became the best way to work because Robin would just kill the pages. Like most artists would wait, get the notes, and do a page. And this is okay. He would just go through like 10 pages, like, so this is it. And they're like, yeah. Can you change this panel? And maybe that one there. And can you change the steering wheel to the other side because that might work for Singapore, but not North America?
Right.
But that was totally fine. But but the thing is, we all understood that was the best way for us to work. Because of that, we had 10 pages to look at.
Right.
We didn't have to guess through thumbnail. He literally you see his inks. He roughed out the pages. Basically, what you see in his inks right now is what we saw. Pretty much.
That's awesome. So
it was crazy that when we asked for a change, we didn't feel guilty. Like we need to change that panel. He has to change all that, like erase all that, do it again. But because of that, it became the best process for the book because we were just. I mean, I know we were doing a horror book, but I wanted to focus on the human condition of all the characters. So a lot of horror movies, like I guess the good ones. They basically set up certain characters, archetypes where we follow and we can embody and stuff like that, and then we can see ourselves in that situation. We want to push it towards that direction a little bit further, where if something like that happened, and then unfortunately we're in this, so it did happen. People don't think rationally,
right?
Because when things are gonna like go ape crap anywhere. You don't go for toilet paper first. You go for food or shelter. That's usually, even survival movies like food and shelter and weapons. That's, bang, bang, bang. That's what we're doing, right? But no, people went for toilet paper. But that's reality, though. People lose it. So we wanted to embody that psyche of the human condition. So our characters do not start out going, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. They're like running for their lives, not knowing what to do. And then as they progress, they become more experienced. This whole story, like all 5 issues happen over a day. Mm-hmm. So they're experiencing it like the way we would experience it in that sense. So each issue, you see them progressing and getting more rational about certain things and sometimes more irrational, but rationalizing that because of the situation around them. So that changed the energy and pacing of the story for us. So we do have a lot of homages to a lot of horror comics and movies in this. But we interjected with that stuff. So when we had questions and commentaries about the script between us, it wasn't necessarily about the art or the action or the scenes for the comic, but the dialogue itself for the characters, because we wanted to make sure that each character had their own personality. It wasn't like, person A, person B, and person C, basically almost like the same person, but they use a certain word differently, or they say it, slightly different. They have the same kind of personality, because that's boring. You see any film, no matter if it's action or horror or mystery, what have you, if all the characters are basically gray tone characters, you lose interest, like that. You don't care. You want them to die actually, so that whoever is staking out survives,
next.
and then you watch the movie, right? So I think,
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, so I think that, that's what took us the most time, was what we were batting back and forth with the characters, I think.
Now, did you guys make a conscious effort? Because I think it's fair. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's fair to say that when you're looking at it, it looks like you've drawn inspiration from like those old 40s and 50s horror comics, the ones that essentially was the impetus for the comics code with the fight in Congress and whatnot, right, in the 50s. So, was it a conscious decision to say, hey, we want to try to capture some of that aesthetic at all?
I really I love the Romero stuff, and I love kind of that era. Definitely didn't over explain things. Even Night of the Living Dead, we don't know why the zombies happened in Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
And I think throughout the whole series, even going up to his more modern spin-offs of it, you don't know. Or you see those old kind of like Twilight Zones and stuff. It just, something weird happens. And this comic is that. And so, yeah, definitely inspiration from that. And then when Robin's art started coming in, and that we kind of got the green light to leave it black and white.
Yeah.
I love the old, like early 70s. They're not called treasury editions, but they're just like magazine size horror comics that Marvel put out.
Yeah.
Like Tomb of Dracula and stuff like that. It looks like that. Like if you didn't know, there's certain pages where you could think that, oh yeah, this is from one of those books, one of those like 1973 books. It just has that style. So yeah, definite influence there for sure. But yeah, I love horror movies that aren't explained, and this falls in that category of something really bad happens, and it's more of about, you could take these characters, and that's what's so weird right now, is that somebody could look at this a couple years from now and think that we wrote it in June of 2020. Inspired by what's going on. It's the most bizarre thing that I can't stop thinking about right now. Is that like there's a scene in one of the issues where most of our characters are together. They find a TV that's working, and like a fuzzy news channel's coming through. And you could take that dialogue, and it sounds like the news I was listening to on March 15th when we had to close down a cinema that I co-own. If you took out scary monster children and just put in a pandemic. So that's really weird. But so like these characters in this situation, you could plop them into a straight drama like that, and it would be, there wouldn't be monsters driving trucks and, a swarm of monsters jumping in a window at a house. But you would have a lot of the same reaction, I think. Like there's one character, one of our main characters' wife, who's early in the book, she's kind of in denial, and you could totally take that and spin it into somebody right now. So that's what I think is funny, because you hear writers talk about that all the time, of somebody will dissect their movie or book or comic and put something really smart in it, and then they just kind of like, the writer goes, yes, that's what I meant completely. And that's where Howard and I are now. We're like, oh yes, we were highly influenced by that right there. So but I think that's where you could take a good characters and just kind of slap them into anything, and I think that's good horror versus, random slasher where you're just waiting for the next interesting kill.
Yeah. Well, about your question about the homages and their influences, when we got to designing the covers, poor Robin. And by the way, it's Robin Simon Ng. This is his full name. He's in Singapore. If you want to find artists, definitely look for him. He kept on giving us covers for issue 1 to give to the public, to Source Point Press. But I sent some over, but I wasn't really crazy about them myself. And then I started talking with Josh about it. I'm like, this is not really the vibe I want for this. It doesn't feel right. I mean, they're great covers, by the way. They're actually beautiful.
Yep.
If we ever have, like an Afterlife edition, we'll probably slap them in with my commentary of, Howard said that they didn't like this. That's true. I didn't really like it. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't like it.
So like, these are awesome.
Yeah, that's like the worst thing is like, it's awesome, but no. So I was like talking to Josh about it, and I was like, why don't we just do like old school covers? Can we do that? So we like started digging in Google and like sending like a mass email. Oh, that email's huge, man. We sent a mass email to Robin, poor Robin, of covers that we like, and film like movie posters that we like, from films that we loved and stuff like that. Now, Robin is not a horror fan. so
Oh,
so he has no background in any of this. So it's like here. So it's like here's like 20 pages of this, all these visual references and movies. And here, watch these movies. Or if you don't have time, don't care. Just look at the posters. Get inspired by it. And then the amazing thing about Robin is like he was like, okay, like he's a very I met him in person once, and he's a very low key guy. He would literally say that. I can actually imagine him saying that in the email, in live in front of me. He's like, okay, go away for a few days and come back and then kill it. Like the covers that you see were not changed. We're like, literally, here's one. What do you think? Yeah, I'm going to throw that to the press. Here's the second one. Absolutely, I'm sending that up. Basically, anytime he sent one over, like 2 source point press, boom. It's like, yep, we love it. Me too. Yeah. So it's like,
and he did like 15, and
yeah,
they picked their 5 favorite, and I couldn't argue, but the other ones worked great as well. I got really hung up on those circles. I wanted those Tales from the Crypt circles on the cover.
Yeah.
That's what. And in that banner. So
Yes.
we're ripping off that iconic kind of look.
Yes.
Which is super fun and kind of gives us a stamp and totally pays tribute to the good old days of horror. But I love those 3 circles. And then we had fun kind of figure out what the characters cliche were or title was. So it's like the veteran and the teenager and that kind of stuff. So
no, I love it. Honestly, it pulls, like, my attention gets pulled to looking at that cover because it's so vintage. Right? Like it just, and it elicits that feeling of like, I haven't seen something like that in a really long time. And like, I'm in my mid 40s, right? So like I have that vintage itch on a lot of stuff. Look, I got a Voltron Lego set behind me, right? So like, I'm all about, the old school stuff. So that just pulls me. And I think it was a great choice. The one thing I did notice in the preview pages I read is that it's quite the fast pace. And I know that Howard, you have a history in animation, and Josh, you went to film school in BC, I think, right? So taking those 2 different types of media genres, did that help influence the writing aspect because you can also use those other skill sets that you've picked up?
Oh,
I love writing comic scripts because they're screenplays essentially. And I've done a bunch of short films and worked on stuff, and just I really like working on comic books more because the last thing I did, which I'm this has been a rough year for everybody. It's been a very productive year for me because I'm working on the 4th issue of my book called Zomkies, which is kind of a fun, cartoony zombie monkeys thing. I got some friends of mine worked on a cartoon called DC Superhero Girls, and I pitched them a bunch of ideas, and I got to write a Flash short. And that's like, if my career ends now, that's it. Like I did a Flash cartoon. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then I did a short story for a really great anthology called Flip. So I did all this stuff. But what I like about writing something like Damn Cursed Children is if it was a movie, like, God, we have car crashes and explosions and, a scene with 100 monster children in it. So like it would just cost a fortune.
Yeah.
So what really frees you up with this is there's a rule in screenplays and possibly in like novels and comics as well, where like X amount of pages in, like 3 pages in, 5 pages in, you got to catch someone's attention, because if it's somebody sitting in an office at, back in the good old days when you could actually submit to DC Comics or a studio, like a film studio, 5-6 pages in, if it's not interesting, they're going to throw it in the garbage because they've got another 50 scripts to go through that day. So in Damn Cursed Children, what I really like is it opens in this quiet scene with our main character. She's a daycare teacher. Everything seems fine. And I love the page flip in comic books. And she hears something, and you flip the page, and she looks out the window, and there's a child leaned over a car, from the backseat of a car, attacking what you assume is their father.
Right.
And then she turns over, she hears something weird, and then the 10 kids in her classroom who were having nap time are all now standing up and looking terrifying, and then they attack her. And we have this crazy scene, which Howard talks about how he tried to pitch this to a number of places that said no. And I think it's because within the first 3 pages, there's a scene of a woman just clocking a 4-year-old with a mug.
Right.
And I fell in love with Robin's art right then. You could hear like the clonk, and you could imagine this little terrifying 3-year-old doing like a 6-foot leap at your neck. And so yeah, that's why the best comic book movies work, because, or like, you know, Robert Rodriguez with Sin City, he just used the comic as storyboards. Like he didn't even write a script, you know. That's like kind of this famous move that he did. So that's why at its best, comics work really well turning into screenplays, because you already got all this material there. You're changing like a few little things. Instead of panel 1, you change that to interior daycare center. That's a screenplay now. Like, so yeah. They work really well.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in a bunch of fields actually. From like, I worked in an animation studio, which was a weird one because it was alive when I was there, and when I left, it died. So it was kind of odd. And it was actually, we're working on a CG, a heavy CG and live action feature film pitch, which I was there for the pitch too, which was interesting enough. But didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. But it learned a lot from pacing, because besides the movie script, because they found out that I wrote comic books, and they're like, "Can you do a comic book pitch for this too?" Yeah, because I'm already writing the script. But I'm not going to do 120 minutes of it. No, I'll do a part of it. So when I did that, the storyboard guys got involved in it, because we had concept artists work on the comic book as well, because of how the nature of the thing. But the storyboard guys were like, "I can do that." I'm like, "I'm pretty sure you can. You want to do it?" Like, "Yep, okay." I'm just writing it, so I don't care if you draw it. Like, but then they started drawing it, and it became this thing where it helped the pitch a lot, because the producer would look at it and basically he was like looking at a blow up of the comic book pages and looking at the script at the same time. It's like, "Oh, that's what you meant by that. Oh, okay, I get it now." Because in a script, you might, in a film script, you might say, I'm just making it up. It's not part of the thing I did, with like a giant robot exploding, and the hero bursts through whatever, right? You imagine it certain ways depending on your upbringing and stuff like that. But when you see the actual thing in a comic book panel, you get it without question. You understand it, right? And this, basically, it's like same thing when he did with Star Wars. When he pitched Star Wars, nobody wanted to do it. Then he did those matte paintings, and you're like, "Oh, we get it now," because they visually can see it, and then it's something that's, I guess, quantifiable, because you can grab it. It's a solid thing that you can grasp and understand it. So that helped a lot there. When I worked in mobile games, scripting was completely very different, because pacing is basically, it's always that you have your story that leads to action, and then from action you go back to story, and it goes back and forth. No matter what you do, you have to get the player to do something, right? So it helps you with pacing, because if you learn any scripting or any writing whatsoever, it's always like the pause, action, pause, the sort and so forth, right? Same thing in mobile games, but there's obviously different goals as well. If you played games, and there's like side quests.
Yeah.
Like, I think people hate when I say this. I love the Mandalorian. First and foremost, I love it.
I won't let Andre know.
But I was like, you're gonna say but all of season 2 so far is basically side quests.
Yeah,
and that's 100%. Why some people are like, "I don't like this. Why I don't like this as much as season 1?" I'm like, because it's all side quests. Unless you get back onto the main quest, a little bit, you're gonna lose it, because it's like, how many more rocks do I have to pick up for this guy to make a thing for me, and and so forth. You're gonna get tired of it. So it's cute. Side quests are great because you get to explore completely new worlds, new characters. I get it, but it's like, so far each episode was like that. So that's what when I brought that. So the animation stuff, the video game stuff, and the comic book stuff I've done to Josh, I was like, okay, the pacing is gonna be different, and I want it to be basically, shit's gonna hit the fan, and people are gonna try to figure it out at the very beginning. That's what's happening, because that's reality. And I think the funny thing was, the reason why we have a daycare, the very first scene, was because of me getting sick for my kids in the daycare. I think Josh was like, the first scene is going to be in a daycare and people are going to die. I'm like, is this anything about me? No. But I think,
and it's a tribute to my mom. She's a daycare teacher.
There you go. Yep. And then the cup, the mug scene, the infants mug scene.
That's my favorite.
I debated that with Josh for so long, because when Robin turn in the pages for that. It looked great. And I was like, oh man, did we go too far? That was like literally back in my head, like, shoot, maybe we went too far. It was really great and it sounded awesome in my head, but now I see this, it's like, it's gone. This is really like in your face. Josh's like, it's fine. It's cool. I was like, I have kids and I don't know. It's like, I don't have kids. I think it's fine. So like, that's not a good justification for me. But so I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe you should keep it. We'll see where it goes. But like Josh mentioned, I pitched this a lot to a lot of publishers that I both knew and didn't know, and editors that I knew and did not know. And the consensus from everybody was basically, I love this. It looks great. I love the art. I love the story. We can't do this.
Is that tough? Is that tough to hear?
You get used to it.
Because you have a passion for it, right? Like you guys, I can tell you love what you've just done. And so you're pitching this and you're having, and I get that, you could do 10 pitches and you might, 8 might not work and the other 2 do. But does it take a little bit of that, make you start to second guess things at all?
For me, no. I'm as Josh can tell now, I'm pretty stubborn in that sense because we got the pitch ready. We even got the first 3 issues in the can actually at that point, which was like, how many years ago? 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
And everybody was talking like, maybe you should do a Kickstarter. Maybe you should put it on digital. Maybe you should go for change the format and go through something like webtoons and stuff. I'm like, no, no, I'm not going to do webtoons because first they're not going to take it. I can tell you that. And that's for the Kickstarter. I'm like, I thought about it because I talked to a lot of friends who did Kickstarter, and a lot of them were successful. Some of them are not. And some of them that were successful were actually in the background were not. They actually broke even or worse because, whatever it may be, a printer might have, upcharged them because they didn't realize, they were going to like have a tier where they're going to change the paper, whatever, for the cover, right? So that kind of spooked me because I'm like, okay, because I'm like heading this, I'm heading this the team. I'm not going to like mess up Josh's life and Robin's life and like, oh, you know what? We're going to Kickstarter. And if we lose money, fork it up. We're going to pay to make this happen, right? So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's terrible. If it was just me, then I'm like, fine. That's all on me. If I have to do it, I screwed it up. That's on me, right? So I feel guilty if I mess up any one of my teams. So I promised Josh. I actually remember promising Josh that I will get this published through a publisher before I die. Thank God it's happening right now. But I just say it to his face. I'm like, before I die, this is going to happen. Trust me. I will make it higher water. It's going to happen. And then the funny thing was when I pitched it to Source Point Press, I didn't mean to pitch it to them. That's the funniest thing. I actually went to one of the AfterCon parties from Fan Expo.
Okay.
Literally to see friends. I wasn't there even to pitch. I was actually in sandals and t-shirts, and I think I was in jeans. So I was kind of semi-professional, but I was in my sandals because my feet hurt. You're in a convention all day. So I was in sandals, like, I don't care. I'm going to eat, talk, hang out, and go home and do it again tomorrow. So one friend came up to me. It's like, hey, you should meet this guy. I'm like, okay. It's like, this is Travis. Hey, Travis, what do you do? It's like, you heard of Source Point Press? Nope. And then he told me, everything about Source Point Press. And, Travis is like telling me about what they do. And he's like asking me what I did. And I told him about, because at that point I had the Iron Man comic book out that I did for Marvel that was for Hong Kong Disneyland. I did based on the ride. I have it there. Over there. Yep. So I talked about that. And he asked me right there, so you have anything to pitch? I'm like, not really. I have things that people didn't want. I literally meant that too. I can talk about that. It's like, if you want, because I didn't prepare for a pitch. I'm here to eat and just shoot the shit. Really, it's like, let me have it. So I told them about Damn Cursed Children. I told them I pitched it, and I told them why people didn't want to do it because they were afraid of the content, the controversy, the misunderstanding of horror, and I'll go over why that shouldn't be the case. But he totally was on board. He was like, "We'll do it." I'm like, "You understand? Wow. You understand that I can show you pages. We have like 3 issues. We can show you pages of this." And I was on my phone. I'm like, "Okay, Wait for Dropbox to load. Got it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm in the bar. Like, here. He's like flipping through. It's like, oh, this is great. Oh, he's like laughing at it. It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah, we're doing this. I'm like,
Wow.
really? I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yep. Okay, I'm gonna see you tomorrow when you're not drunk, and then we'll talk. Make sure, because I'm not gonna email Josh and go, we got it, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I went to their booth and talked to a lot of their creators, writers, and artists there, which was really cool because he was busy doing his thing, which is great, marketing and selling books to fans and stuff. And it was for me to able to connect with the people who have books for them was like super nipidus, because I was like, so how is he? How's your book doing? How's he treating you guys? The whole bit, because I don't know anything about, even if he gives me the contract, like I can't sign this unless I really find out more about you.
Yeah.
And that helped me like learn more about him. And then he remembered me from last night, and we talked, and I reminded him about the pitch. I reminded him about the content, showed them the clunking in the cup. Like, there's more of this, and it goes that way. It doesn't calm down. It goes that way. It's like, yep, totally fine. I'm like, all right. So email me, we'll talk, and then we'll nail down a contract, and then we'll take it from there. So I'll be honest with you. So far, working with Source Point Press, the entire team, my God, they let us do whatever we want, as long as we justify, which makes sense. But it was never this won't do well in marketing. Oh, you can't do that. That won't sell because whatever. They never did that to us. They basically say, is this what you want? Is this the direction you want to go? Fine. Then push it. Do that. Do that. Make it happen. When we talked about doing homage covers and stuff, I'm like, are you guys okay with that? Absolutely. We even have we'll redo our logo to fit it. If you look at the logo on our covers, that's not the regular Source Point Press logo.
Yeah.
Right. This is like a homage to the EC comics. So they actually made that. So it's like, this is crazy, because most publishers would say no or can't, or that's
our logo. Leave it alone.
That's our brand. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's sort of like they did that. I'm like, wow, okay. So this is great. So we never had difficulty working with them, which is crazy. I have worked with a few publishers here and there, and also, in mobile games and whatnot, you have different stories, different experiences, right? Like in toys, you can have wonderful experiences where you're laughing and joking and even doing something like this.
Yeah.
And you're working. Or you get down to people who, oh man, that's a bad story. I can't tell you which toy it happened in, but there was an accountant that sat in every meeting, and it was like I was doing story development, and there's accountants sat in every meeting. I didn't understand why, until we got to the point where I was going to write and work on the promotional comic for it. And at that time, it was like, it's going to be 5 issues. We're going to pay you and the artist. I'm like, great. And I got an artist who's also a friend of mine on board. And then within a week, it's like, stop, we're not doing 5 issues. I'm like, okay, we're doing 10 pages. Why? And then in the meeting, the accountant for the first time talked and explained why, and it was basically numbers.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I get it, right? But had you told me way back then, that would have been great. So you get different experiences, and it's a really hard sometimes to work when it's like people are not, in sync or even communicating with each other, right? So, but with them, they were very responsive. Like anytime we send them an email, I mean, sometimes I email the dumbest questions. I forget. I could brain fart. Like, what's the page sizes again? Because I need to write that in the solicit. It's like, yep, this is it, Howard. I'm like, thank you.
That's awesome, man.
Sweet.
That's awesome. One thing I wanted to touch on is that when I used to live in Toronto, and for those who are in the GTA, I used to go to the Royal Cinema all the time because it's like an independent cinema house. And now people who don't know, Josh actually runs the Mayfield out in Ottawa. Is that correct?
Mayfair Theater.
Mayfair. Sorry. Yeah,
That's
the
okay.
Mayfair Theater. And that may or may not be haunted. And I know that this past weekend, you guys just debuted the new Frank Zappa documentary by Alex Winter. So what, how, first of all, you've got your own theater, man. I mean, that.
Yeah.
That is some kind of awesome.
Yeah. And it's like everything in life is a lot of luck and a little bit of skill. And like myself, everything is Source Point Press and all this connection and doing Damn Cursed Children. Without sounding pompous, like if I was the worst writer in the world, Howard would have gotten rid of me. So I'm but so Howard
I was gonna say he
more,
would have sold it anyways.
yeah. So Howard is more in the trenches of being a full-time writer. And then I've got friends who edit anthologies, and I've got stories in a couple of anthologies, and I got friends in animation, and I got to work in animation. So with this, like, I lived at the Mayfair when I was in high school. We would go all the time, and it would be like a cliche. We would just say we're going to the Mayfair. We wouldn't even say like we're going to see Dune. We were just going to the Mayfair. Our parents knew that we were there. Our parents joked like it's so much better having nerd kids than cool kids, because they knew we were at the Mayfair or in a basement playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like we weren't somewhere partying or something, you know. But yeah, so in 2008, it looked like the Mayfair was going to go away, and it was going to be torn down and turned into a Shoppers Drug Mart. And a small group of people who I was friendly acquaintances with saved it. And then when they came back, I started just helping them out with certain things, whether it be just kind of fun old school stuff. Like we each had like neighborhoods to deliver the flyers, and helping out around the cinema and doing special events, just all kinds of little stuff like that. And then some of the people who had helped save the place amicably decided to move on to other things. And an opening came up, and one of the owners said, well, we should ask our biggest fan if he wants to be one of the owners. And I was right on the verge of becoming a grown-up and like getting a condo or something like that.
Right.
And so instead sunk all my money into a movie theater from 1932 and have no regrets. And so we took over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's 2020. And despite this crazy year, we're still hanging in there. And before that, we had we know a manager who worked there 25 years ago, and he thinks we were doing better now or in 2019 than ever. And we're really an anomaly because a multiplex opened up down the street, and a lot of people smarter than us in business were like, that's it, you're done. And not only were we not done, but our patrons became more stubborn, and the city became more stubborn and would say like, say like right now, for example, they'd say like, are you getting Tenet? And we'd say, oh yeah, as soon as we can. It could take 2 or 3 months, but we're going to get it. And people would wait and would come and see that with us. And yeah, like it's a 1932 single screen cinema that is hanging in there. And if you ever want feel good stories during these horrible times, is while we were on lockdown, we sold off naming rights on seats.
Yeah.
And I genuinely thought it was going to be like 20 seats. We sold all 325 seats at $150 a pop, and people put their business name or their dog's name, or we got our first date at the Mayfair, all this kind of fun stuff. And then we sold off marquee names. People put birthday messages on there. So the community really chipped in, and we had so many people concerned, like, how are you guys doing? Are you come back from this? And we would have people just sending us like $40. And just not for reward, not for like a free T-shirt or whatever, and just say, we were going to come see Rocky Horror in October, but you guys are closed down, so this is for that. So it's just like I'm a crier normally. Like you show me a Muppet movie or like anything like that.
Fozzie, no.
Yeah, my wife would tease me every day that something like that happened, and she'd be like, "So you're just crying at home?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." So, and now we're still like it's not good for anybody now, but we have the Ottawa's at the place where we're tiptoeing towards normalcy, right? So we can have 50 people in, and then like masks and social distant. We got a bunch of our seats are taped off, all that kind of stuff. But it's just amazing community, and you see that any nerd community, like comic books at their best, or movies at their best, or people who are really into music, or like there's a magic there. And what the Mayfair is great for is we show everything. Like today, my wife and I went to see a movie called Ammonite. Total highbrow British film, really good. But then later this week, I'm going to go see Zappa. And Alex Winter has been great. He's been like retweeting and Facebooking and everything. Independent filmmakers go that extra mile, like Chris Nolan's probably not going to say hello to us on Twitter and retweet something about come to see Tenet.
You never know.
Never know.
Never know.
You
Nolan,
never
come on,
know.
step it up.
But Alex Winter is great, and then in upcoming weeks we have Gremlins and It's a Wonderful Life.
Christmas
But
classic.
but we also have like the new horror movie, sci-fi horror Possessor, Ontario shot, which is supposed to be really good. So really diverse stuff, and it's a real like I'm making some good nerd dream come true cred in the last bunch of years because I get to own a movie theater and write cartoons and comic books, and I've gotten to know a bunch of cool nerd people over the past few years. And like one of the sad things is that no comic conventions this year, and my wife and I have made tradition because she's from Halifax, and we became friends with Nick Bradshaw. And if you're a comic fan, you should know Nick Bradshaw because he's brilliant and the nicest guy you'll ever meet in his life. So the past 3 years, we have crashed in his and his wife's spare room and gone to this little East Coast Comic Expo just in Moncton, and just the best fans. And he gets in these really great creators because they want to. Nick is cool. So, we missed doing that this year. And I was looking forward to going to Toronto because I would have got to go with Source Point Press and be there as part of that. And once you get to the other side of the line, there's no going back. So now that I've like gone to film festivals and gone to Comic Cons the last few years, in Ottawa, I got to like host some panels, and in Montreal, I was going to do that this summer. Didn't get to do any of that. So I'm looking forward to all that. I mean, Toronto's thinking about, Howard was talking about it like in a previous interview we did, like they're talking about summer 2021, and we're like, I don't know, guys. That might be a little too soon still, but
yeah, exactly. It's tough. But back to Mayfair, having been there once, hopefully I'll go there soon again. It is one of a kind. It has the balconies. It has the Art Deco. It's absolutely beautiful. You take photos and show them the inside more than the outside. The outside is very like, you won't think it's going to be that awesome, but once you walk in through the front door, it's like, it hits you. It's like, this is like the old school.
We have that Google thing. You can Google walk through the Mayfair. Yeah.
Definitely, I should do that because inside is crazy. You still have the alien statue on the balcony?
We lost the alien statue.
What? How'd you?
It's hilarious.
It's haunted, Howard. We've got
trap doors.
Trap doors in theaters, and
I will say this:
life-size alien statue. How do you lose that? But anyway,
well, try to tell the story in an unchauvinistic way. But we got the alien statue because somebody's wife or girlfriend was scared of the alien statue, so we got it donated. Under the stipulation, under the stipulation that we would give it back whenever they wanted it back. So recently he wanted it back, and I don't know the end of the story of if they broke up or if there was like a fight and he picked the alien over her. I don't know, but we have two fake balconies to the left and the right of the screen. And they're fake in that, like, you can only get up to them with a ladder. They look like there should be some spiral staircase, but it's just for show. So you can climb up there, but so we put this life-size alien up there. But we still do have Han and Carbonite up on the back wall. And we have the cardboard cutout of the villain from Karate Kid. And it's the actual cardboard cutout from the movie, where it was like his cardboard cutout for his strip mall.
Johnny Lawrence or the sensei?
Yeah, we have Johnny Lawrence in the cinema. Yeah.
That's awesome.
As I said, this theater is like, you walk in, you're like, you see, once you walk in, it hits you because you can see Josh's love for things like plastered everywhere. When you walk into the actual theater, you're like, that's like I said, like, there's an alien statue there. There's it's like that's the theater. You're walking in, you're not even looking at the theater yet, but you're looking at all his. Basically, I think it's your collection just ported over there because you don't have space at home, so just use the movie theater just to hold your stuff.
Yeah, but myself and my partner Lee, who's a big Star Wars geek as well, he's got a bunch of toys up around, but it's like the closest you get to time travel, and it's happened a couple times the last couple of years. I hope it happens again this year. Is going to see It's a Wonderful Life in a 1932 cinema on the big screen in the good old days with like a couple hundred people. This year, hopefully, we'll have 50 people packed in there. And then going outside, and there's like a nice light snow falling down, and there's that part in the movie where Jimmy Stewart yells like like thank you, old movie house, and it's just like the closest thing to time travel in a big cinema, and that's what keeps us going, because like we show new stuff as well, but like anybody coming to see Army of Darkness probably owns it on Blu-ray. Anybody coming to see It's a Wonderful Life has seen it 5 times before.
Yeah.
But you cannot beat going to a cinema to see a movie, because you get to turn off your phone. You don't get the distraction. And I'm like anybody else. I watch movies at home sometimes, but you press pause to get a snack, or the doorbell rings or whatever. But
100%.
yeah, so it's magic. And it's so flattering that during these troubled times for us, we had people check in from as far away as Vancouver, old classmates of mine telling lovely stories about they wanted to buy a seat because they remember that was their first date back in high school, or someone from Nunavut checking in who is a government person and spends time in Ottawa, and every time he comes to Ottawa, comes to the Mayfair, so he bought a seat. Or people in Los Angeles, in London, England, who used to live in Ottawa and moved away, or like sad, happy stuff, but like a few, like 3 or 4 people bought seats for grandparents or parents who passed away who loved the Mayfair. And, you know, you're lucky I'm not crying right now telling these stories.
You're bringing a service. You're doing a service. You're filling up the collective bucket of everybody. And that's just awesome, man. Yeah. And I love that. So at the theater, would you show a movie like The Crow?
We have, in not really recent, but in the past few years, we definitely have screened it before. Yeah. Within the last decade, we've screened it before. Yeah.
Is it one of, like, we're gonna get deep dive into The Crow here? Is this something that you hold near and dear to your heart? The Crow.
The Crow will be an important nerd movie for me for the rest of my life. Besides for its historical sad importance and important comic book, corner of the comic book universe it has, is that it was the first movie that I legitimately got to go to as an 18-year-old and not sneak into. Because my birthday is in March, and I looked it up after you guys said that's what we're going to be chatting about today. It came out in May. So I was like 18 years old and 2 months. And that was the first one. And when I was 18, I looked about 12. So I'm sure they didn't believe me. But
he's like, right here.
So that was my first pretending to be a grown-up 18-year-old movie.
1994, right?
Yeah.
So I would have been 18. I'm a 76 kid, so yeah.
Yeah, me too. We're the same.
April 76. So yeah. That's awesome.
So Josh actually got to see in the theater.
So did I.
Rob and Howard, did you guys get to see it in the theater? Or
I did. Yeah. I'm a tad bit older than you guys, so I did see it in the theater, but I did help some friends get in, possibly with some paper document that I helped possibly make. Yeah. Which was fun, because before that I got to see some other films the same way, possibly, that I allegedly doctored some documents to do so.
Statute of limitations is over, Howard. You're good.
You're fine.
You're fine.
We used to do the switcheroo. You buy a ticket to something else, and then you just hop over.
That's a funny thing. You know what? The funny thing, I actually tried that with some friends. I was like, I don't know what film we were trying to get into, but the other film was the Dice Clay movie.
Oh, Fort Fairlane.
Yes, which we didn't want to watch. We bought a ticket for that, and we were trying to get. I forgot which film it was. We tried to sneak in. We got caught by the manager. So he's like, "Oh, I don't think this is your right theater." Okay, well, we lost. We want to watch this movie. Then the usher he's like a high schooler, right? He's like, "Come on, go."
Yeah, just go. He's like, "Whatever, go."
He opened the door. He's like, "Come on." And then and he basically walked us through the other theater and then rushed us into the other theater. Like, I remember, for the life of me, I can't remember that what movie was. But going back to The Crow is an important movie to me. Yes, partially because what happened to Brandon Lee. But the movie itself, it had a huge impact. It just basically hit me, if you want to call check boxes for a teenager. 18, I assume, to me, my brain was still a teenager. That ticked everything, like the mood, the set, the story, the pacing, the whole bit, right?
The music,
right? So exactly, the music too.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about the comic until after the film, because I was like trying to it's like anybody. After you see the film, you want to grab stuff. So I remember watching it on Oh man, I watched it in the horrible theater. Actually, I watched it in the Eden Center downtown, so that's not the best theater to watch.
The old school when they had like the 6 theaters, they were all like really tiny.
Yeah,
and
it's like watching a big giant TV now, but right?
yeah,
But I was like, The Crow. Okay, why not? I'll go watch this. With a bunch of my friends, whatever. You guys want to watch this? Let's do it. So after that, we basically was going to Sam the Record Man to pick up the CD, the soundtrack, which I have somewhere buried in
amazing soundtrack. Yeah,
have it in my basement, and then I found out from the guy at the record store that it was a comic book. I'm like, the heck? So we walked over to
World's biggest bookstore.
No, it was a comic book shop. Definitely a comic book shop. I forgot which one it was, but it was really back in the day. So I bought the comic book. I bought the trade and I couldn't find it. I was trying to dig it up today because I was like digging up some stuff for research and stuff. I'm kind of pissed that I can't find it because that's just one of my favorite comic books.
It would have been kind of semi hard to come by back then too, because it's kind of like an indie book. It's not,
yes,
a
but
mainstream book.
I also bought this that day, way back in '94. So you can see it's still in plastic. It's actually plastic. I took it out, I think, once.
Yeah.
In my entire life. So for today, this will be the second time I'm breaking it out for you guys. So we want to flip through it before we talk about it, or talk about it first? You tell me.
We can talk about it. You can hold it up. We're going to focus on the audio, but yeah, we can definitely interested to see what's hiding in there. So, Rob, did you go see it in the theater?
Yeah, I did. I saw it in the theater as well. I grew up in between like a small town then Scarborough. So at Fairview Mall, for those who would remember. Yeah, at the time, the theaters were just above the food court. So you would go in there and there was this older lady and older guy who worked there and they were just, ticket, please. And you would just hand the ticket off of that. But it was just the experience that I'm going in and seeing, as Josh said, like, not having to sneak into you could legit walk in. It's like the first time you bought beer from the beer store. It's like, I'm supposed to be here. Here's my ID. I'm allowed to be here. Right. So yeah, it was great. Well, I saw it in the theater and it was so moved by it. Obviously, you had the whole energy about what had happened to Brandon Lee. I left the theater and went right back in and watched it again because it was just transformative for me. Like it was unreal about just how amazing it was. Right. So
I'll shoot a quick question and simple one actually posted here in the comments. That they dressed up and went to see the movie by themselves. Did any of you guys ever consider rocking the Crow look with the long hair and painting your face up? No, none of you guys. All right.
Actually, no.
I did have a little bit longer hair because this is still like that's the grunge era, right? '94. You're just after Pearl Jam and you've got Stone Temple Pilots have come out, and so I had a little bit of longer hair, but at no point did I ever think I'm gonna drop that the leather house coat or whatever raincoat and
the big trench coat.
Yeah, the trench coat. Yeah. No.
What was the big like music video song for that movie? Like I can't remember. Was it like Stone Temple Pilots or it was something like that?
There was
a
bunch
in here.
Because I remember it was like
there was a Cure song called "The Burn." I know that one was really hot, and there was a 9 Inch Nails song, which is the one he's playing on the guitar during the movie. But I don't know if Rob might be able to pop that up for us. But we'll just quickly talk about the movie. So the movie came out in 1994. It had a $24 million budget, made about 50 mil at the box office. So it was kind of a smash hit. And the tragedy of Brandon Lee's death took place, and I'm sure we've all kind of heard. Everyone's probably pretty in depth with that. I even think they even had like Unsolved Mysteries episodes talking about the whole prop issue and things like that. So we don't really need to cover that. But Howard touched on it briefly. The Brandon Lee starring in it, and as me as an Asian as well would be like, hey, a first Asian leading man. So like, and then and to do the performance that he did. So normally what we do for the movies is we kind of do a little kind of like spoiler free, would you recommend it or not? And I feel like we're all on the same page, so I feel like we can kind of skip that. We all highly recommend this.
Should we recommend this film? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe
pristine making of book for like over 20 something years now.
94. That's why I'm like really carefully turning the pages, but it's like some beautiful. I haven't realized that I forgot I had this in a way, but wow, James. Okay, this is great. This is a great photo of James O'Barker. Look at that. Yeah. So that's some of his art.
Yeah.
So like when what the funny thing was, I didn't know that Brandon Lee like I didn't know his other films before The Crow. So The Crow was my
Yeah.
first experience with him, and Jesus Christ, like he was amazing in it. And then after that, I was trying to find his other films, and they were really bad.
Yeah.
Rapid
I can actually
fire.
give you, I can actually give you a pretty brief rundown of them. So one of his first, he's done a couple Asian movies in Hong Kong, dubbed over voices and things like that, in a TV movie, Kung Fu with
David Carradine.
Kwai Chang Caine, who is David Carradine. Yes.
Yes.
So his
yeah.
actual North American releases were, one was called Laser Mission, which was pretty horrid, featuring a song called Mercenary Man. It was pretty hilarious. And then the kind of the other two that you might know a little bit more. When one was Showdown in Little Tokyo, with Dolph Lundgren, Tia Carrere, and then he also did another movie called Rapid Fire, which had Powers Booth and a couple other. But they were basically they were martial artsy B movies. So The Crow was like, I didn't get to see it in the theaters. Unfortunately, I think it was in grade like 5 or 6.
All right, get out of here.
I didn't get to.
Get out
This
of
is
here.
one of the rare occasions where I'm the young guy in the room. So I only got to see it in a VHS later. So I'd become a fan of his movies, the cheesy martial arts movies, just because he was an Asian leading star. So when The Crow hit, I actually didn't appreciate the fact that he didn't do a lot of martial arts in the movie. But now that I've grown, I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, the fact that he didn't do a lot of martial arts in the movie was one of the great things. So we'll keep it rolling. So we're basically going into spoiler territory now. So anyone who hasn't seen it, definitely go see it. We're way
movie.
26-year-old movie. Just in case, if someone hasn't seen it, you definitely should watch it. It's on Amazon Prime right now if you're in Canada. But I was gonna just I was just gonna get your kind of general thoughts on the movie, how it holds up now in 2020. So I don't know if Josh or Howard, one of you guys want to go first?
Does it hold up? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely holds up. If they, I don't know if they remastered it for the, it sounds so bad for TVs today, but for the streaming services, I hope they remastered it, because it's just so many things happening in the background too. So I'm trying to avoid some spoilers because I want to keep it.
No, we can go.
We're
gonna go deep.
We can go full forward now.
So the funny thing about this film is that the set pieces, I think it was all filmed. I think it was all filmed in a set, actually, if I'm right.
It looks like it, yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of scenes where he's like running on rooftops and there's helicopters and stuff like that, and it is a set, but you just take a leap of faith with it because it's just so well filmed. And the lighting is incredible. If you think about, this is like 94, don't forget. So the lighting there's no like, let's fix this in post in the computer. No, there's we screwed it up. Well, oh well. So they did an amazing lighting job in that film. And the thing is, it was a lot of rain in this film. So rain is like one of the most horrid things to film because of all the light refractions and stuff like that, and what have you. And actors do not like getting wet. I'm pretty sure, because if you asked me to stand in the, for a day to be in the soggy clothes, I probably wouldn't be your best friend either. But they made it work. And the way you look at his acting compared to today's acting that we see in movie theaters and in things from Netflix or Amazon Prime, it goes toe to toe. If not, it will be like exceedingly beyond that. The other actors did amazing jobs. I honestly can't remember most of their names. I'm sorry, but the guys who play the gang members, from Fun Boy to Tintin, Top Dollar is, that's over the top. But
yeah, everyone gave a pretty solid performance. Even Bai Ling, who's been in a couple movies after, she actually was very good in this
that's
role.
a whole different topic right there, everybody. Right there, right?
We'll keep that for a separate podcast.
My friends fell in love with her back, and I was like, really? I literally I looked at, because it's like, you're a bunch of guys that like, I wonder how they're. Oh, okay, yeah, it's happening. But the thing was, that was the other Asian person in the film. If you think about it, but for me, and this is the weird part. For me, I didn't go, look, there's an Asian guy, there's an Asian girl. I didn't even see that. I just saw them as characters. For the first time in a long time seeing anything on screen, that was the impact for me. I didn't go, oh, there's an Asian lead. Oh, there's an Asian female who actually has a pretty cool character and not like a stereotypical character. So I didn't see that. I just connected like these are all different characters, and we're on this journey with somebody who came back to to do some stuff. Let's put it that way. I know I'm still trying to avoid spoilers. I want people to actually watch the film, who hopefully fresh eyes, because it's one of those things that will impact you. And especially now, I think, especially now with what's happening outside, there's a lot of motifs that still ring true to today, especially. How about you, Josh? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Well, it's such a weird movie because, like, pretend none of the real life stuff happened, and it's talk about, like, horror and genre and westerns, whatever. The Crows doesn't take any big leaps. Like, it's a guy dies, and it's a revenge.
It's revenge, yeah, revenge.
It's there's been 10 Clint Eastwood movies that are the exact same movie with a little bit less supernatural aspect to them. But I can't help but think of, like, the crew and the director, where it's like, say, like, John Candy died during a production, or like Fast and the Furious dealt with that, but it wasn't around a movie where the guy dies in the movie. So it's just like you can't not watch it and not think of that, and that it worked. And it spawned sequels. So, like, Hollywood only cares about money.
No City of Angels here.
No.
But it's, I like you were saying, how it looks all inside. I think purposefully it looks like those old, like, Hammer horror films with like the buildings inside and the fake moon and everything like that. So it's definitely, it didn't shy away from its comic book roots. And I always like when a comic book movie does that, because years ago, I remember it was when I was in school in Vancouver. I haven't seen this movie since it was on TV, but there was a Generation X TV movie.
Yeah.
And Banshee was in it, and Emma Frost was in it. And I think it was a bunch of new characters. Maybe Jubilee was in it, but I haven't seen it since. Yeah, Jubilee was in it. But I will never, ever forget flipping through a newspaper during, like, a lunch break at school or something at the little restaurant that was nearby, and the director, because it filmed in Vancouver, and the director said, well, we really wanted to distance ourselves from the source material. We wanted people to forget it was from a comic book. And that was the problem with so many, the reason Kenneth Branagh does good Shakespeare movies, he really likes Shakespeare. And the reason why Sam Raimi did a great job on Spider-Man, he really likes Spider-Man. And so it's so funny that Hollywood thought, to do a comic book movie, we have to get as far away from that as possible. And in The Crow, clearly it's a comic book movie. And
I believe James O'Barr was actually on set, like, working very closely, and even Brandon Lee talks about working with him during some of the final interviews that he did.
And I think that poor guy got messed up too, didn't he? Like, when to do more Crow comics, like, it kind of, Brandon's death kind of messed him up, and he just
because Crow was originally inspired by his tragedy of his wife or girlfriend dying, I think, hit by a drunk driver or something along those lines. And it took him a while to put together The Crow. I think like over a year for him to or maybe longer to put it together. So, good things.
And you think of what might have been, like, if Crow had come out and Brandon lived through it, like today he might have been some Oscar-winning actor. Like, you don't know. Like, we screened some Bruce Lee movies recently, and some of them are pretty campy. But I think given a shot, Bruce Lee could have become a good character actor. No one ever thought Clint Eastwood would become a real actor, and he won an Oscar now. So it's like, who knows what would have happened with Brandon?
He's royalty now. So Brandon Lee, Heath Ledger, even Bruce Lee himself, all these actors that never kind of got to see the response to what is probably their best performances, right? Rob, did you have anything?
I think we talk about whether or not this movie holds up, and it totally does. And if you look at it, the one thing I've noticed, and I watch it probably about once or twice a year, because it's just fun for me, right? Like, I just find it fun, and not in, like, a joyous way. I don't know. I love watching this movie, and the one thing I notice that you never see is, like, cell phones. So it doesn't date itself. Right? You're never looking. I mean, yes, you got the cars are a little bit older, but then some of them are classic cars even to that time period at any rate. So it for anybody regardless of what age you are when it came out, if you were like, you know, somebody in diapers like John when it came out, or if you
I'm only a couple of years behind you guys. Only a couple.
Right? or whatever you are now in 2020, you owe it to yourself to watch this, because I'm going to tell you right now, it holds up. It holds up as a movie. It holds up as a genre movie. It holds up as a comic book movie. It's a good movie, and the aesthetic of it is phenomenal. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie.
And it came out in an interesting time, because it was like on the heels of, you know, Batman was there in '89.
Wow.
But I like all these movies, but like Dick Tracy flopped, Rocketeer flopped, Tank Girl flopped. So it was, and then it came out before Blade and X-Men. So it's this anomaly where not a humongous hit, but doubled its budget, did well enough to make sequels, sell some merch. So it's an anomaly in that it, you know, Tank Girl didn't work, Dick Tracy didn't work, Rocketeer didn't work. So that it worked is a compliment as well, because people liked it. And it wasn't just the controversy, like it was a good film.
Yeah. But look at that poster. Like Howard showed the I think at the back of that, it's the reverse image. Yeah. I mean, that is such an iconic image. That's just taken right from the movie. Right. I mean, that's near the end when he opens up the church doors, and that's the poster. Like, it's everything about this movie. Yeah. It just hits on all cylinders.
Yeah. Like it's his acting right. Like the fact is, even when he's like doing shots, just for like, I think partially for just the camera here and there.
The performance was so layered. He would come off as a madman sometimes. He would come off angry. He would come off depressed. It was like he would showcase so many different like kind of facets of this character.
I think I mean, I think one of the things I found interesting when I was like going over it and thinking about his acting was, it sounds like it's like a geek thing. Like, imagine if he played the Joker the way he would do it. It would be so deep, because when you see him acting as a Crow, this is not just him on revenge. It's not just that. That's why we love it, because it's not there. I'm going to kill these guys because they did something bad to my girlfriend and it killed me. Done. Right? It's not an '80s action film. It's not that at all. It's the fact that it's a lot of pain. The fact that the reason why he's going after these guys, because it caused him the worst pain that he could ever have before dying. So that's what he's doing.
Which is losing his fiance. The character's name was, I think, Shelley, and he actually doesn't seem to give a crap that they killed him. He basically just like, I don't care that you killed me. I'm after you guys for this thing that you did to her. And I'm here to do this mission. So like, so we'll jump to quickly. Like, do you guys have like a favorite scene? So I don't know if Rob, you want to open it up, and then Howard and Josh, if you want to jump in with something.
Oh my God! You know what?
If you need some,
just one.
Yeah, there's so many. I was making a list. Like, there's so many, even silly stuff. Like, there's one point where one of the leftover gang members, he's the last one left. His name is Skank, I think. And he's talking about how T-Bird died. He's like, and then he's talking all crazy,
drinking the bourbon.
Like, that scene is crazy. And I'll do my scene so you guys have a little bit more time. My favorite scene is when he comes and talks to the cop who was, I believe Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters.
Ernie Hudson,
And he just kind of shows up, and they kind of like have a heart to heart, and he's like, you still have your hat on. He's like wearing his hat and his like tank top and his shorts, because he's a cop, right, through and through. And then he talks underwear, man. And then he kind of just sits there, and they just kind of have a moment together, and he's like, oh, you know what, the Shelley used to like think about all the trivial things. He's like, nothing in life is trivial. Like, even just like little scenes like that, and that's not even getting to the action. So I don't know, Rob, you got something now?
Yeah, well, no, because this movie is rife with a lot of amazing pieces. You know, whether he's putting his costume on, the guitar playing on the roof, the battle, and on the table. But the one thing that always stood out for me is, we talked about this, is the angel of vengeance, essentially, but he stops, and I just had to go and get the actress's name. It was Sarah's mom, Darla. Yeah, right. And she was doing the heroin and stuff like that, and he stops her and he pulls her up because he has this connection to Sarah, because Sarah was an integral part of between him and Shelley, back in the day, and he makes that quote about, mother is the name of, on the lips of all babes, or whatever, and he uses his power to pull out the heroin out of her veins. And that for me, for whatever reason, I was just like, wow, like that. It just struck me as something you just wouldn't see. Do you know? Like it was just so different. And so yeah, I have a lot of favorite scenes, but that one I always think about is it was just really powerful, right? Just showing her and explaining to her, you know, how important of a role a mother is in, you know, or a parent is in that Sarah needed in her life, because he wasn't going to be there anymore, right? So
you touched on that. That's actually one of my favorite scenes too, because of I think it's because the way he delivered his lines, the way he did it. It was the most creepy yet supportive way of telling someone not to do drugs. But the thing was that scene when he's like literally using his powers not to kill her or freak her out. He was purging the drugs out of her.
Yeah.
And the thing is, okay, I think I definitely want to touch upon this because they cut this character out of the movie, which was actually in the comic book. And this is one of the things that it works better in the film because they cut that character out. But when he did that, it really hit home because it's sort of like that dream of, you know, if you had a friend or family member who was a drug addict, that's what you would want to do. You want to purge that thing out of them and get it out of the system, and then it's done, right? I mean, the scene that followed after that, mind you, the scene before that with Fun Boy and the Magnum, the gun, and the hole, that blew my mind. That's actually okay. I'll take that scene. I love that scene. I'll take that scene because
the innkeeper joke
again, 94, right? So it's no digital. You know, it's not like, oh, it's like a lot of CGI. Yeah. You know, that hand in the gun scene is like, what the hell am I looking at? It's like it totally threw you off your brain. And the actors just went the way they worked around that scene and made it more real. Yeah, it was crazy because it's like they're really out of their effing minds, and it's the guy who just, you know, who sat there and let you blew his hand off, and he's like still there, and he's still gonna go after you. That was just,
and he screams and he acts like he's really hurt, and then he like whips around and instantly like
and he's like
he's like laughing, he's like laughing,
right?
So when I talked about him being a great Joker, imagine in that. He would have been an amazing Joker. That would freak you out because, like, is he like psychotic? Is he like really hurt? What the hell's going on with this guy up here? That's the best part of that. But that scene with Darla and Sarah, like after that,
I was gonna say the follow-up scene is actually really good too.
That was amazing. That breakfast scene, like and when she's like, I can't remember how you like your eggs. You like it, you know? It's like, and
she calls her Darla.
Darla. She never calls her mom, right? And then and then she's like, I can't do this mom shit and whatever. And then she thought she was going to give up. And she's like, tells her what egg she had. Then she cooks it. It was over. I remember it's over easy.
Like, over easy.
Over easy. Right. And that was sort of like, wow. It's because that basically, it's not that he's just saved Darla. He gave that love that Sarah lost when her mom went with the drugs. So that's basically a sort of like a gift from Eric. Like, I mean, the character, Ben's character is Eric, gave to Sarah before he had to continue his journey. So that's like one of those amazing scenes. Like, there's so many in this film. My God, picking one is such a pain. I just said 3. I'm such an ass. But
Josh, you got anything?
I remember the climax of the movie where, I could be wrong, but I think that's where the accident happened. Like, I think Brandon didn't have much left to do, and
he had like 3 days, literally 3 days left to shoot.
Yeah, and just the way they shot it, you know, movie shoot out of order, but he got to do most of the stuff, and then they were lucky because it was dark and the technology at the time that kind of helped things, so it would be like a stuntman or a body double kind of hiding in the shadows and stuff. So
a stuntman filled in for him, and that stuntman went on to direct John Wick, the first movie.
Oh,
one of the guys that it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah, that's wicked. Holy shit, nice.
But I just remember that, and I remember the movie when it ended. It like it feels like a Western to me, but like when it ended and he got his revenge.
Yeah,
I remember people sitting through the credits. Like, people were hit hard enough and to just soak it in, and we're sitting like, it's a powerful movie. So yeah, I'll remember that, and it's did such a good job of that kind of gothic climax, and again, like, you know, it follows the rules. Like, there's not really a big twist or turn in it. It's an original kind of character, but it follows that gothic / Western revenge, and very memorable for kind of playing within the rules and still being successful in its originality.
and they keep it nice and tight too. They don't kind of like diverge. So I will bring up. I think Howard was about to bring it up. The notion of the I think he's called the skeleton cowboy or
Yep,
something, which actually was originally going to be in the film, and then they filmed some scenes, and they ended up cutting it out. And he's like kind of like a spirit guide to the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they actually had him cast. There's actually I forgot the gentleman's name, but they had actually cast a guy in as him. So yeah, look at that.
That would have changed the whole tone of the movie. Like it would have made it so. It would have taken it way to the absurd, I think, like to throw that in. So I'm really kind of glad that they did.
They discovered that they could. So that's I guess a testament to this movie that they discovered, even though they have like all those pictures that Howard showed there, they put all this effort in and they realized it doesn't need to be here. Yeah. So this movie can be an hour 40 minutes instead of an 2 hour movie, and keep it really kind of like tight.
Yeah.
So okay.
And for people who hopefully have read the comic, people who don't know, if you don't want to listen, club your ears. That character, I think it's called is it the cowboy? What was it called?
I think he's called the skeleton cowboy or the skull cowboy. Yeah, skeleton cowboy. I want to say.
He was the medium for Eric's character between Land of the Dead and the Land of the Living. Basically, he was a guide, and the way he would work was, anytime that Eric would deviate from his journey, anytime he deviates from his journey, basically to revenge and help other people, he would lose his ability to regenerate and to get hurt. So they actually explain it. I remember reading this from the book way back then, that you'll see him duct taping his arms and stuff.
Yeah.
So look, remember, the thing is, he was getting attacked. I think it was Fun Boy, right? Fun Boy was slashing him.
There was a knife fight that was cut.
Yeah. So you remember, people sometimes forget, it's like before that he was getting shot and stuff, and he had the hand and swell, totally fine. But it's because he was doing something that's deviating him from the path that he came back for. That he got hurt. So the skeleton cowboy would remind him, like, must stay in you got to stay in the path. He's in the comic books, by the way. So you got to stay in the path, or you won't not finish what you came back to do. So cutting him out, to me, made the film a lot better. I think it works better in the comic books having that kind of a character, but in the film it doesn't, because it's sort of that weirdness of, you have a supernatural character already, and then you have another one telling this guy what to do.
It's originally how he was supposed to lose his power in the end, because he's already got his revenge, and then he goes to save Sarah, and the Skull Cowboy's like, no, your mission is already done, and that's why he has no powers. But they did a good job in the movie, kind of adding the crow element there.
They changed it with the crow being his source of power, and then going back to Bai Ling, if I can find it, I have it in here somewhere. Bai Ling basically is like a witch, I guess would be the best way I'm going to explain her character, who wants to take the crow to take its power, but the crow does this kind of thing to her.
There
you go.
Because she wanted the crow's eyes. She was like the power. That's the
it's weird about the eyes thing.
Yeah, she had a thing about eyes, which was
she wanted everybody's eyes, but it was just like creepy and shit, because that actually falls upon a lot of different beliefs and Wiccan stuff and what have you. So it's just like, I would like his eyes. I'm like, oh shit, that's like actually kind of scary. It's like, that casting spells. He wants to carve his eye out. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But so it made it better. It made the film much tighter. And it kind of made sense, because the way they edited the film too, they had the crow as the spirit guide, if you want to call it that. I remember the end of the film, he had his engagement ring.
Yeah.
He gave it back. He gave it back to him, or Shelley. Was it gave back? I think he gave it back to Shelley.
Sarah. The crow flies back and gives it to Sarah.
Yeah.
And then and that was the end, because they can then cross over, what have you. So I think that was a better way of dealing with it than having the Skull Cowboy come in, because to me it's sort of like, if he's told what to do and what he can and cannot do, it sort of takes away from the whole process of us following his journey. Because you'll make mistakes. We follow your mistakes. We don't know this stuff either. But it's like, don't do that. That'll hurt you. Okay. Do that. Okay. And that the film maybe technically could be even more shorter, if you ask me. It's sort of like, I'll just do all these things correctly, and we're done.
And then we're done. Yeah, we're all done.
Right? So it makes it such a tighter film without that character.
Yeah, so that actually, it's a good thing you brought up Bai Ling's death here, because I kind of ran through like how all the bad guys kind of died, and I wanted to ask you guys who kind of got it worse. So first guy to die is Tintin, and he gets the knives, right? And one of the guys summarizes it later. He's like, oh, someone stuck him with every knife he had in every body part in alphabetical order or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think he's at the top of the list. Fun boy, he's a victim of the overdose kind of, and he says he chokes on it. He stated that he chokes on his own blood.
Crow, right?
Yeah.
He puts it all in the crow on his chest.
Yeah. So I feel like that's not as bad. T-Bird, he's the guy that gets strapped into the car, and he's like, there's no coming back to no, which was a really cool
real
scene.
world.
This
is the really real world.
That was like, I think that just the anticipation of him about to die was I guess his journey. And then they say the car exploded and he was fused to the car. So, but I feel like he won't feel that because it'll blow up and he's just instantly dead. So he's not that bad. Skank actually gets off like the easiest, and he's like thrown out of the window during the big gunfight, which a bunch of guys die. They just get shot, so that's not that bad. So yeah, oh man, yeah. There's poor Fun Boy, the sorceress. So Howard showed the picture there. She loses her eyes to the crow and then falls down like some bell tower shaft.
The bell tower, the same one that Batman had climbed up in '89.
Yeah, that one guy who chucks them off, and Batman murders those guys straight up. Right. Yeah, and then Grange, who's that kind of like the henchman guy, the black guy with the glasses. He just seems to get shot and disappears. So I think he got off pretty easy. And then of course the main bad guy, he gets the 30 hours of pain. So I feel like he's definitely at the top. But there's actually a secret entrant. I don't know if you guys remember this scene. The pawn shop guy.
Oh yeah,
Gideon.
He thinks he's like doing his job. He's snitching on whatever happened, and then he gets a sword through his neck.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, and then the guy's like, "Hurry up and die!" and then whips out a gun and shoots him. So I don't know, like if I don't think he takes a top spot, but I feel like he gets up there. So I don't know if you guys have anything on there.
Wow, that's the most painful death.
Yeah.
I mean,
these characters are always jerks. Like they go the extra mile to just kill somebody.
But Eric feels like he doesn't actually like go out of his way to torture them. It doesn't seem.
No, he does. Only one Top Dollar got it for psychological. Top Dollar got it the worst.
Yeah.
In the film, he had the 30 hours of pain because the I forgot his character. I mean, the actor's name. The cop was with his fiance for 30 hours straight as they're trying to save her. So he basically felt he basically took that memory into himself. Yeah, and it hurt Eric too. So he basically, at this point in the movie, Eric was basically he lost all his his supernatural powers. He could. It sounds going to sound weird. He can die again. I don't know how to explain that. He could die again. He can hurt. Yeah. So his only way to stop Top Dollar from killing him was using the pain that his fiance had to save himself, but also, I think, to give her direct revenge for her death. So I think he got the worst because he saw what he put her through, and he couldn't erase it in his mind. He did physically die, but he couldn't erase it out of his mind that whole moment before he, and then gets screwed. I think that probably is the worst one psychologically. I think. Yeah,
I think he for sure takes the top spot, and I think either Tintin or the guy that get the sword.
T-Bird, though, the whole his abject fear, right, of seeing Eric driven back, like that to me was haunting and chilling, right? I mean, and that as that car is careening off the dock or whatever, that's the stand-in, because at that point Brandon Lee had already passed. And so you had that shot that was from the back and he's doing the waving, right? So, but yeah, the abject fear on T-Bird's face, about, you're not really coming back, this is a really real world. Like that was just, that was a great scene. So
that was good acting on his part, because that was purely based on the acting to sell it.
Yeah.
So at one point, sorry, Josh. Yeah. You got any input on who got it the worst?
Probably the last guy. The 30 hours. That's
30 hours. I think nothing really tops that. Yeah. But I just thought it would be a funny list. So there was talk about this movie being remade, and it got kicked around a lot. A lot of names were attached to it. At one point, Mark Wahlberg was attached to it. Bradley
Jason
Cooper was
Momoa.
attached to it, and the most recently was Jason Momoa, and it was and as of now, it's kind of dead in the water. But do you guys think this could ever be remade or redone as a TV show, or a Netflix miniseries or something like that? Would you ever want to see them go back to it and
They did
pay
it.
respects?
I didn't watch the sequels. I watched the trailers way back in the day, and no. So that was a big fat no. And it wasn't because of the actor either. It was just that it just didn't have the same gut reaction feeling when I first saw the first trailer for the first film.
Yeah.
And then there was also that TV series. Shit. Let me think. The Crow.
Yeah, it's Stairway to Heaven, I think it was called, and it starred Mark Dukakis, who is
as the Crow,
the guy who does the backflips in Iron Chef.
And well, you know what? The show wasn't great, obviously, because it's TV, so they couldn't do a lot of the things they could do in film for sure because of the ratings. But one of the things they did, which I think was a better job in the makeup. So if you see the Crow, you see this makeup, you see that it's like I can find it here. So Brandon Lee in the film, he basically paints his face as a black and white. It's black and white, but you can sort of get the idea. So he paints his face at the beginning of the film, after right. You can see that there. Maybe I don't know. Can you guys see? There you go.
Yeah, great musical sequence in the film. Yeah.
So in the TV series, the way it would work is he'd be like normal, and then when he's needed, he starts tearing up. So he actually had black tears coming down his eyes. And then and then he'll just become the Crow, right? And I was like, that's such a better transition to it than what they did in the film. Because the film was like, he was just mad. He started painting, all of a sudden he's painting his face white and then doing, the makeup. It's sort of like, you go with it, but it's sort of like, that's probably wouldn't be the first thing you would do after coming back from the dead. But, okay. But that was the only weird part of the film for me. Is like, that's kind of an odd thing to do after you come back, because you came back from the dead. It's like, it's not like, so, that was
let me fix my face.
So,
yeah, but don't forget though, he went back to his house and he was touching, right? And he was feeling the memories of that house, and then that's when he saw the makeup from from his band and all that stuff, and so I agree, but I like that version. I like the movie version better than the TV version about, all of a sudden becoming his hulking out. He's like Bill Bixby, and he's like, oh, and then the black tears come down, right? So.
Yeah, Josh, would you like to see it back in 2020 for a new generation, maybe?
Well, I always come to the defense of reboots and sequels and reimaginings, because there's this weird conception that we only started rebooting and remaking movies like 2 years ago, and it's not true, because you go back and like the Wizard of Oz that we all know is not the first Wizard of Oz. And then you jump a bunch of decades later, but like, I think John Carpenter's The Thing, for me, is better than the original Thing. I think Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11 is better than the original Ocean's 11, and I think the Coen Brothers' True Grit is way better than the original True Grit. Yeah. So that's just me. And even on in television in the last while, like I think Battlestar Galactica is better than the original Battlestar Galactica, and what are we in, like 2/3 through Lost in Space, which I think is great. So I'm never opposed to a remake or a reboot. So, if they say they're doing a new Crow movie and, fill in the blank, some great directors, some great screenwriters doing it, I'm like, yeah, sure. That's fine by me, because it's nothing new. And we keep on having remakes and reboots that are, I think, really good. And, on Broadway, how many times has a different team done Hamlet? Or
100%.
I'm not opposed to it at all. It all depends on who's making it, and I'm sure they can get some really cool filmmakers interested in and what you got to think too, it'll make all of us feel old, but it's by today's standards, it's an old movie, and so you got people who are grown-ups now who, to them, that's like not the same genre, but it's like comparing Batman 66 to Dark Knight. It's a big gap now. So there's nothing wrong with getting another interpretation. I mean, we all read comic books, and comic books are like, poor comic book characters, they never get a third act. Like Spider-Man just keeps on going, you know.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
good with all these. And even like who did you say, Jason Momoa or Bradley Cooper? Like either of those guys, I think could bring something to that role.
Yeah, for sure. Rob, would you want to see the Crow come back?
You know, my gut instinct is to say no because I think it's perfect the way it is. But I agree with Josh. You listen. You have to rest on their laurels. This movie still exists. So whether or not the reboot is any good or not, this movie still exists. So I think we can all agree the Arnold version of Conan is way better than Jason Momoa's version of Conan.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa's Conan exists, but we're all going to keep watching the 1980 Arnold version. So, hey, sure, have at it. You're not going to taint what we already have, right? If the sequels couldn't do that, then a reboot's not going to do it either. So I'm fine.
Yeah.
Jaws 4 didn't burn the prince of Jaws. We still have Jaws.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't erase this. It doesn't travel back in time in a DeLorean and slap the movie ticket out of your hand.
Yeah.
You know, it still exists in your memory.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I got for The Crow, unless anyone's got any final thoughts, and then we'll talk about the book a little bit more, and then we'll let you guys go. We've kept you guys long enough. So
I was actually going to say that the soundtrack we were talking about, it was The Cure. It was Burn from The Cure. That was their big. Although for the MTV Movie Awards, Stone Temple Pilots' Big Empty won the best song. The Cure wasn't nominated, but it was The Cure was the song, which actually turned a lot of people onto The Cure in the 90s, right? So
I think there's some that's happened a lot with soundtracks at the time, but I think that's The Cure's highest chart topping song by far. That's their biggest single. And they garnered way more album sales, especially back then, because they were on that soundtrack.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. So Josh and Howard, any final thoughts on the Crow before we get back to
watch it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Try to watch. It's kind of bad. Watch it in the movie theater, but it's kind of hard to do that. Watch it for sure. I mean, I own it on VHS
with the lights off. Watch it with the lights off and the sound nice and loud.
Yeah, you know what? Definitely. Yeah, watch it. Don't watch it during the day. Don't do that to yourself. Watch it at night for sure. Don't get distracted. Don't pause it. Don't treat yourself. You know what? Treat it as though you were in a real movie theater. You're not going to get up and then walk out in the middle of a film, right? To do whatever. So try to do that and set some time up for it because it's really worth it. And you guys are the most lucky guys because I had to wait until you popped on VHS for me to watch it again. So the only way I could watch it was to watch it in the movie theater, and I did. And the funny thing, Rob mentioned Fairview Mall because I actually live near Fairview Mall. So my second and third watching was at Fairview Mall, which was semi better than the theater that was at downtown Toronto Eaton Center. So definitely do that. Definitely watch it. This is one of the weirdest thing I'm going to say to anybody because I usually do the opposite. Watch the film first, then if you're interested, try to find the comic book because it's a different journey. It's like same thing when my wife and kids are like, I want to look at the Umbrella Academy books that you have, which I honestly can't find right now. But I'm like, it's not the same thing. It is
especially in that case. Yeah, it actually. I feel like if you watch the show first and you go back and read the comics, which is a more comic booky version of those characters, I think 100%. I agree with you there.
So do the opposite. I know it's like as a person who does comic books, watch the film first and then read the comic. Yeah. But do that because it's a totally different experience when you do it that way. That's my 2 cents. So definitely go watch it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. So we'll talk quickly about the book again. So Damned Cursed Children is coming out July 27th, I believe, is the release date for issue number 1.
January 27th.
January 27th.
Sorry, January.
2021.
So in 2021, something to look forward to in 2021. You can order it from your local comic shop. So we will be bringing in copies because we had to support our boys here. So you can let us know at Heroes World if you want a copy of that. If not, go to your local comic store. You can give them this code, and it's NOV, so November, NOV 20, so 2020, 1529, and you can order your copy of number 1. And then if you want number 2 as well, so number 2, the code for that one is December, DEC 201678. So I don't know if you guys want to mention
we'll put that in the links and stuff.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the links, and we're definitely going to get the information from Josh about his theater so people can check that out. We'll put those in the links for you guys. Anything else you guys want to mention about the book that we might have missed?
Well, anybody who buys a copy or orders a copy from Heroes World, I'll sign them all for free. No question.
that.
Anytime. I know. I mean, I may not be at the shop at the time when I sign. The same time you are at, if you come to the shop because of what's happening out there. But I'll come in one day and I'll sign a bunch of them and not touch John or anybody else when I'm there.
Well, that would have happened before, anyways, because John's a little dicey, right?
So,
So
that's what I'll do because you know what, I am a York Region resident, so for me it's not a really long journey. So I'll definitely do that. And if any other comic book shops are interested in signing, like for Josh or I to sign anything, let us know. Just email us or contact us through SourcePoint Press or through Heroes World. I honestly want people watching this or friends of people watching this to pre-order books and pick them up from your comic book shops because it helps them. If you like comic book shops or having the idea of having a comic book shop, you got to do this. If you don't, they will not be around. If you go, oh, I wish they were still around, you could have done something. This is the time. I encourage you guys to do that. Order books. You don't have to order our books necessarily, but if you do, great. I'll sign them.
No, you have to order our book.
Okay, fine. Well,
you definitely have to order that first.
Well,
that's first on the list.
First, and definitely order as many books as you can from, not just for yourself, order for other people. Get them hooked on to comic books as well. Because if you always ask yourself, how come I'm the only one or two or three people who read comic books amongst my friends? Because you're not sharing that with them. Buy a bunch of comic books, drop it in their lap, and go read this stuff. See why I love this stuff, right? It doesn't have to be new stuff. It could be old stuff, Go in the bins if they have bins for you to dig up. I don't know if you guys can dig in bins right now, but, whatever the case may be, do support your local shops.
I've had to teach my favorite uncle how to buy a comic book for this. And so if I could do that, you can trick your mom into buying a comic book too. It'll work.
But in all fairness, though, Josh, you have a Green Lantern wedding ring, so you have a bit of an advantage over.
There you go.
Look at that.
There you go. So
big cred.
Awesome. Okay, so Josh, where can people find you and learn more about you?
I'm undercover on Twitter, just at Mayfair Theater. We have a weekly podcast called the Mayfair Theater Podcast, where we talk about random stuff for 45 minutes and then remember to plug that week's movies. It was great fun to do over lockdown. It gave us something to do and was just heartwarming of people touching base and saying that they were so glad we kept on going just because we talked about what was going on and it was lots of fun. So we're insanely about to do our 300th episode coming up pretty soon. That's available from wherever you get podcasts. And then I'm on Facebook, Josh Stafford, under Bat Turtle, and Instagram is BatTurtle_Mayfair because someone beat me to the punch of just getting my Bat Turtle tag. And,
give that back to Josh. Come on.
Yeah.
Whoever took that, give that back.
I've had that since I was a little kid. BAT is my video game name. But yeah, so on there for the Mayfair Theater, if you ever dropping by Ottawa, we'll be there, always showing cool stuff. And by Damn Cursed Children, I'm very proud of it and look forward to having it out. I love that it's with no disrespect to trades or graphic novels. I love that it's a 5-monthly book. I just think that's cool. And so you'll get a cool old school Tales from the Crypt style comic that is a lot of fun. And despite being a horror book, still has a lot of cool stuff in it. And cool. I want to do a sequel. So buy that comic book.
For sure.
Perfect. Yeah. And Howard, where can we find you?
You can find me at my blog. It's howard-wong.blogspot.com. I have all my social media accounts listed there. But if you want to jump onto Twitter, I'm, at Howard Wong. 1 is in the number 1. And for Instagram, it's at The Real Howard Wong. And if you want to see Josh cry, buy more books. I'm pretty sure we can. If you buy a ton of books, a ton of Damn Cursed Children, I'm pretty sure he will cry.
Yeah, we'll
I'll take a picture of myself crying when I'm holding that book.
And we will film it live for you for your enjoyment. So that's the reason why you should buy Damn Cursed Children.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you guys on.
We'll have to chat again and hook up again when the other issues come out. And Rob, where can we find you as usual?
Well, Twitter and Instagram, it's at Rob Gaudette. And of course, we will be live again on Mondays. John and I doing the Sidekick podcast. Sidekick? Yeah. And then I thought I said psychic for a second there. Yeah, Sidekick podcast. And then we're doing the Mandalorian recaps on the main one. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so guys, this was a
that
Heroes
show
World
makes me
podcast.
cry. I've cried a couple times
Yeah.
at that show.
Yeah,
So is Andre
me too.
for different
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, especially that
Great.
last episode, that Jedi stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
but
man,
thanks for
we can
tuning in,
talk about
folks.
that for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for having us. It's
All
been
right,
great
yeah.
and fun, man.
Cool, awesome. Thank you very much, folks. We will see you again soon.